بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين صلوات We are already into the Azah of Sayyid al-Shuhada as the last member of Ahl Kisa and a prominent member of Al Ibrahim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al Imran as a family chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These Majalis of Muharram primarily, of course, are they to express our condolences to the Imam of the time and to the Ahlul Bayt on the Shahadat of Hussein bin Ali and his family and companions in Karbala. But at the same time, it is actually a way for us to revive our own spirits. As I mentioned last night, this is an opportunity for us to elevate ourselves on the intellectual level by knowing more about our religion. It's also an opportunity where on the spiritual level and an emotional level we increase the love and the hubb of Ali Muhammad. And with that knowledge and that love, you reach to the third stage where we pledge the allegiance to Hussein, that we will live by the values for which he sacrificed everything. So they are connected to one another. You have aql, you have qalb, and then you have the body which has to follow the dictates of what we have learned. The themes that we have that are selected for these majalis basically is coming from the speech given by Dr. Yasir Qadhi, as I mentioned last night, just to start and continue from yesterday, that Dr. Yasir Qadhi is a prominent American Sunni scholar who after graduating here in US went to Medina University, did his BA and Masters in Islamic Studies in Medina. And of course he came back with the Salafi perspective of Islam. But then he went for his PhD at Yale University. It seems there things were balanced in his mind. And from someone who did not really even consider Shias to be in the fold of Islam, he has turned around. And the good thing is that he believes in mutual respect for the madhahib between the Shias and Sunnis. And he also renounces violence against the Shias, and he rejects that process, that what is happening in different parts of the Muslim world at the moment. And when it comes to the differences that we have between the Shia and the Sunni madhahib, I would totally agree with his perspective that we can have our differences, we can talk about it, we do not ignore them. We can even have discussions about them, but let us do it on the basis of mutual respect and civility towards one another. And these are the positive elements that we have to actually welcome and appreciate, especially, as I said yesterday, that when we see in the Muslim world, the dialogue is only through the bullets and the sword and nothing else. So when you have this kind of perspective, this is something, a positive sign as far as, dialogue between the madhahib is concerned. He gave a speech, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, in the speech that he gave was in November last year about the massacre of Karbala and the historical background of Karbala. And he is a prominent Sunni scholar, and so that speech is being viewed and listened to by many, many people. Many things are positive there, but there are issues that we would have a problem with. And I don't want a young mind from our community listening to that and coming back with doubts in certain beliefs and historical issues from the Shia perspective. The themes that I've selected from his speech yesterday, we talked about the origin of Shiaism. And tonight I would like to go to another part of his talk, because talking about Karbala, he starts with the historical background. Talks about Amir al-Mu'mineen briefly, and then Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Muawiyah, before he comes to the events of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Karbala. When he talks about Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he praises him, which is a good thing. But at the end, he ended up making a comment that Hussein was not happy with the peace treaty of Hassan. So there was a dispute between the brothers on this issue. And that is a theme that I have chosen for tonight, just to talk about it. Yes, we have the Jashan on the 15th of Ramadan, but it's mostly Shair and Shairi. When we have the Wafat of Imam Hassan, I think it's commemorated together with Rasulullah. So in that sense, Imam Hassan is Mazloom even among the Shias. We really don't talk about him. We do not discuss him in detail in that way. And I thought this will be an opportunity to talk about his peace treaty. What were the circumstances which led him to go into this? And what were the main conditions that he put? And what was the reaction of some of the Shias, and ending with the reaction of Hussein bin Ali towards his brother Hassan bin Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat. The first thing that Dr. Yusuf Qadhi says about Imam Hassan alayhi salam is that after the shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they reached to a point of almost starting another civil war between Muslims. And this is where he says that Imam Hassan, for the betterment of the Ummah, decided to give up power. And he was very careful even describing what it meant when Imam Hassan gave up power, which was in a positive way. And this is a very valuable assessment from him, and we actually agree with that Imam Hassan alayhi salam did this for the betterment of the Ummah and betterment of the faith. Number two, he says, we as Sunnis believe that Hassan was worthier and more righteous than Muawiyah to be the Khalifa. These are his words. And this is also a very interesting acknowledgement coming from him. That when he compares Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Muawiyah, he says Hassan was more worthier and more righteous compared to Muawiyah. But then later on, even when he talks about Yazid, he makes a comment, and we will talk about this in detail later on, where he says that, from the Sunni perspective, the Khalifa doesn't have to be afdal. The Khalifa doesn't have to be the best of the Ummah. You can have a lesser person becoming a Khalifa even while there are other people more worthier. And so he says, from our perspective, for Muawiyah to become the Khalifa is okay, even though there were more worthy people at that time. I will just make one comment here, and as I said, we'll leave the detail for some other nights to talk about it as a concept and the belief system. But here I'll just say one ayat from Quran, Surah Yunus, ayat number 35, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَمَنْ يَهْدِ إِلَى الْحَقِّ أَحَقُّ أَنْ يُتَّبَعْ أَمَّنْ لَا يَهْدِ إِلَّا أَنْ يُهْدَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the person who guides you to the truth, is he more worthier to be followed, or somebody who cannot guide you until he is guided by someone else? فَمَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. So Allah is surprised. Why don't you use your intelligence? If you have somebody who is more worthier, why not go with him? Why go with a person who is lesser than the other? And this is where Allah uses the word for فَمَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. What is the matter with you people? What kind of judgments you are making on such issues? Salawat pradhe para. But then the third comment that he makes about Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein is the issue that when Imam Hassan decided to make peace, many of his Shias were not happy with him, including Hussein was not happy with him. And sometimes, it's amazing. This was first time that I was exposed to this kind of thinking, where at the end he says, actually, we love Hassan more than Hussein. Trying to create a divide between the two brothers and the perspectives that we would have towards them. And just look at the decision and the peace treaty that Imam Hassan bin Ali made with Muawiyah. And then we'll see the reaction of some of the Shias who didn't understand that. And then we'll come to Imam Hussein. As far as Hassan and Hussein are concerned, most of the ahadith in the Sunni books from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he talks about two grandsons of his, he always talks about them together. There are ahadith, exclusively for Imam Hassan and for Imam Hussein. But there are more ahadith where Rasulullah presents them together. If you look at, for example, even the ayat of Quran, although the name of Hassan is not there, but the Muslim Mufassirin, Shia and Sunni alike, they agree that his presence there in the events mentioned in the Quran, his presence with his grandfather, is a known fact. Nobody denies that. Whether it's about the event of Tathir, Hadith Kisa, or the event of Mubahala, or the ayat of Muwadda, or the entire story of the fasting for 3 days, Surah Dahr, or you look at Surah Kawthar. These are the ayat of Quran where Hassan and Hussein have been mentioned in the details of history and tafsir together. As far as the ahadith are concerned from the Prophet, just two of them. One about their status of Hassan and Hussein together in this dunya, and another about the akhirah. When it comes to the dunya, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he talks about both of them and he says, Ibnaya Hadan, these two sons of mine, Imaman, they are Imam and leaders. Qama aw qa'ada. It's kind of a prediction of what will happen in the future. Qama aw qa'ada, whether they stand up and fight or they sit down and make peace. In both situations they are imam and leaders, and you have to follow and obey them. This is as far as dunya is concerned. What about the akhirah? The famous hadith from the Shia and Sunni sources both, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn Sayyida Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. That Hassan and Hussein both are the leaders of the youths of paradise. There is no doubt about this hadith. All the muhaddithin accept it. And so when it comes to the status of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, especially when we talk about their ismat and taharat, their infallibility, their character, their belief, even their status as Imam and the Sayyid in Akhirah, in Jannah, they are all together and equal as if they are, one unit with two different dimensions. Salawat pranay bara. So let us look at the peace treaty itself. Amir al-Mu'mineen, during his short khilafat of 5 years, he had to deal with 3 problems which ended up in war. One is Jamal in Basra, the second was Siffin, and the third is Naharawan. The issue of Siffin was not conclusive, and Amir al-Mu'mineen was still planning to raise an army which has to go to Syria to confront Muawiyah. And he did this. He was even in the process of that when he was killed. But the people of Iraq, after going through 3 wars in 5 years, they had become kind of less enthusiastic. And not many of them actually were technically the Shia of Ali. They accepted him because of the circumstances, but they did not necessarily believe in him as an infallible imam appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so there was, sometimes he would say, let us get ready, raise the army and go for war. They will say, oh, it's summer, it's very hot. And then, in another season, he will say, let's get ready and go. They will say, oh, it's very cold. Actually, in one of the khutbah, he says, what is the matter with you? I try to raise an army and you say it's very hot. And then in another season, you say it's too cold. And so those different excuses were being brought. And it was in that circumstances that Amir al-Mu'mineen was killed. And so Imam Hassan alayhi salam basically inherits this situation in Iraq, where the people are not fully with the Imam of the time. But Imam Hassan decided to continue the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He raised 40,000 people, an army to go and confront the Syrian forces of Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. He actually he went with his people, and then they camped in an area known as Nukhayla, outside Kufa, and he sent 12,000 of them as the advance guard to go and look at the battle front to see what are the situation there. And this advance guard of 12,000 soldiers were put under the command of Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, the brother of Abdullah ibn Abbas. So he's a cousin of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The second in command was Qais bin Sa'ad bin Ubaidah. These 2 commanders were appointed there, and they went ahead, and Imam stayed in Nukhawila with his forces, 28,000 soldiers, while this advance guard of 12,000 went there. Muawiyah also had already come with his own army. They reached to the point during the night time, and this is what happens now. Imam Hassan is at the back with 28,000 soldiers. In the actual battlefront there are 12,000 soldiers under Ubaidullah ibn Abbas during the night time. And this is where we have to realize relationship do not mean anything. if it is not based on faith. Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, who is made commander by Imam Hassan, during the darkness of the night, the spies of Muawiyah come to him, and basically they buy him out for 1 million dirham. He is bribed, and it changes side. By the time the army wakes up in the morning, they find that the commander is gone. Not only that he has become ill or went back to Kufa, no, he has actually gone to the other side. You can realize that the morale of the 12,000 soldiers would be totally down if the commander is, bought out. And this is where Qais bin Sa'd really did a very brilliant job there. He stood up, gave a very fiery speech to boost the morale of the soldiers, and prepared them actually to start and initiate the attack on the army of Muawiyah. But on other side, what Muawiyah had done, he had sent his own spies in both camps, in Nukhayla to the army of Imam Hassan, and in the front to the 12,000 soldiers under Qais bin Sa'd. In the front, the spies started spreading the rumors that you guys are sitting here boosted to fight against Syrian army. Don't you know that Hassan has already signed peace treaty with Muawiyah? On the other side, in the campsite of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, the spies of Muawiyah started spreading the rumors that, you people are sitting here thinking that things are going on according to your plan, but the forces of Ubaidullah ibn Abbas and Qais bin Sa'd, they already made peace with Muawiyah. And you can realize that the result was nothing but chaos and desert. People started deserting the campsite, going back to Kufa. Because majority of them were not Shia. Most of them were there not because of Hubb Ali, love of Ali. They were there because of Bughz of Muawiyah. The people of Iraq had this historical, attitude of not liking the Syrians, the Shami people, because of different events which had taken place before. And so it was more this hatred towards the Syrians which had brought them with Amir al-Mu'minin and then later on with Imam Hassan bin Ali. And so when the people started to moving away, it was under these circumstances that Muawiyah now sent proposal for truce or peace treaty. And this is where Imam accepted it. But the question is, why did Muawiyah do this? With this kind of a chaotic situation in the army of Imam Hassan, he could have very easily just started his attack, totally eliminated the army of Imam Hassan and taken over the power. But Muawiyah was a very shrewd politician. He was looking at the future. He realized that if I gain power only by military might, I will be the ruler without any legitimacy. He wanted to get the power with kind of a, legitimacy of transferring of power from one to another. And this is where he proposes now the peace treaty, to the extent that, now there is a lot of, discussion among historians who initiated the truce first. Was it Imam Hassan or Muawiyah? And what were the circumstances? Who sent the conditions to the other? But when we look at all the reports, what we come to realize that initially Muawiyah even sent the letters of the tribal chief of Kufa Because when they realize that, our party is not going to win, they always look for the winning party. And they wanted to have some good deals before things get out of hand. So some of them actually even wrote letters to Muawiyah that, if you give us certain privileges, we'll be with you. We are even willing to arrest Hassan bin Ali and hand him over to you. And so he sent some of those letters to Imam Hassan. And Imam also sent a couple of messengers to Muawiyah to talk about this issue. And that is where Muawiyah actually asked one of his officers to give a paper or the material on which things were written at that time, put his seal at the bottom of it, a blank paper, and he gave to the messenger. He said, go and take this and ask Hassan to put whatever conditions he wants. Because the main objective of him was to get power. Whatever you want, I'm willing to give it to you. And this is where Imam Hassan alayhi salam basically wrote the conditions in there. And again, there is a dispute about how many conditions were written in that. But we know that at least 5 of them are kind of unanimously accepted by all historians. Salawat on Akbar. The first condition that Imam wrote in that Muawiyah will rule according to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to the sunnah of Rasulullah, an example of the virtuous khulafa. Now when he puts the word virtuous khulafa, this can be read in different ways. But he put this as a condition, that you have to base your rule and governance on these principles. Number 2, he said the people on the face of the earth, in the Muslim domain, whether it is Sham or Iraq or Hijaz or Yemen, all will be accorded safety and security. When you hear about Imam Hassan, even from the Sunni, reciters where they say, Shahzadeh Amn, he really was concerned about the well-being of the Ummah in general. So he put that as a condition, that all people, irrespective of whatever mazhab they are, in the entire Muslim domain, their safety and security will be guaranteed. And then he specifically, number 3, he says, the companions of Ali and the Shia of Ali will be accorded the security of their lives, their property, their women, and their children. Because this was a very essential condition in this treaty. According to one narration, Muawiyah sent a message saying that I will not, give this security to all the ashab of Ali. Some of them I would like to kill. And Imam Hassan says there is no agreement. Now what he did later on, we know history. But at least in the peace agreement, he was forced to sign this, that even the companions of Ali and the Shia of Ali would be accorded as safety and security. And this is a pledge that Muawiyah has to make in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat alayhi. And then Imam Hassan adds the 4th condition. So he talked about the basis of governance, the people in general, the Shia of Ali, and number 4, he talks about Ahlul Bayt. He says that Muawiyah will not conspire against Hassan bin Ali, his brother Hussein bin Ali, or anyone from the Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah. So even now he's talking about a very select group, that you will not do anything to harm them secretly or openly. You will not threaten them and you will not harass them. And number 5, a very important condition, Muawiyah does not have the right, the final one, to appoint anyone as his successor Rather, their rule and the governance will return to Hassan bin Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat pढ़ना एक बार. This final condition is there also in Al-Isaba and also At-Tabaqat Al-Kubra of Al-Sha'rani and others. And this last condition was very essential. Imam Hassan, gave the power to Muawiyah. But by putting this condition, he actually defeated the plan of Muawiyah. Muawiyah was looking for legitimacy in order to perpetuate this process of ruling in his own family, to form a dynasty, which he did. But by putting this condition there, Imam Hassan bin Ali alayhi salatu wasalam took away the legitimacy from Muawiyah of establishing a dynasty after himself. So because of this condition, Yazid cannot be a legitimate Khalifa and successor of Muawiyah. And the entire, silsila of Banu Umayyah loses their legitimacy based on this condition that Hassan bin Ali put in this peace treaty. And therefore you will see, and this is a point to think about it, you look at any book of history written by Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they will talk about the four Khulafa, and how do they describe them? They say Khulafa Rashideen. What does Rashideen mean? Means rightly guided Khalifas. Do they include Muawiyah in that? Or any of the Khulafa from Banu Umayyah? No. So even from Sunni perspective, the Khilafat which was rightly guided and Rashida stops before Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan and the Khulafa who came in Banu Umayyah. And that is where we come to realize what Imam Hassan had done. The Prophet actually had said once, لَوْ كَانَ الْعَقْلِ إِنسَانًا لَكَانَ الْحَسَنِ. If intelligence could take a human form, it would be in the form of Hassan bin Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. And so we see that Imam Hassan alayhi salam basically agreed according to the circumstances. There was no any other way to go, in this situation. But by putting the conditions, he made sure that people would know where the legitimacy lies. But there were many, many Shias also who did not understand the wisdom of the actions taken by Imam Hassan bin Ali. Not that they, and we are not talking about the Iraqi opportunists of those days. We are talking about those who were sincere Shia. Some of them actually you would go to the extent, and I'm just mentioning it so that we know history. They would actually go to the Imam, do salam to him, and address him by saying, Assalamu alayka ya mudhill al-mu'mineen. May salam on you, the one who disgraced the mu'mineen. This is where you come to realize the hilm, the forbearance, and sabr of Imam Hassan. Yes, when enemies came and taunted him, he would be very, sharp in responding to them. But when the Shias would come, he knows that they are ignorant. They don't know. They are saying this out of ignorance, and so he maintained his hilm and sabr at that time. One of the prominent members of the Shia community those days, who later on in history becomes Shaheed because of his love for Ali bin Abi Talib, was Hujr bin Adi. He was with Ali, he was with Imam Hassan, and he was one who was very vocal in expressing his displeasure with this peace treaty. Not that he was a bad person, but we can say that in history at that moment, The aql of Hujr bin Ali was overcome with his emotions. And this is where we have to realize and learn the lesson. You know, once he came to the Imam and he said, and this is the translation, I'll just read very quick. I think I'm running out of time tonight. Where Hujr bin Ali says, O son of the Prophet, I wish I had died before the event. You have taken us away from justice and handed us to injustice. You have made us relinquish the truth that we had and have pushed us into the hands of batil and falsehood. We have put ourselves into humiliation and such a calamity that we have never faced before. According to historians, these words, فَاشْتَدَّ عَلَى الْحَسَنِ كَلَامُ حُجْرٍ. These words coming from a prominent Shia, a true Shia of Ali, really hurt the feelings of Imam Hassan. Still he maintained his calm. And he responded to him by saying that I see that the majority was ready for truce and were reluctant to go to war. And I didn't want to force them to do something they didn't like. In this situation, I decided to make peace in order to save the lives of my Shias and postpone this war for some other time. And this is where we see, and just the message that we should learn from the example of Hujr bin Ali, who indeed is a good example, except in that case, that there might be things that we would not be able to understand from the Quran and the confirmed sayings of the Ma'sumeen. But if we know this is from the Quran and the sayings of the Ma'sumeen, we as Muslims and Shias don't have a choice but to accept it. Yes, we wouldn't understand it. We can question that, we can debate it, we can discuss it, but we cannot say I will not believe in it because I cannot understand it. Because our intelligence has not yet reached to the level that we can understand the wisdom of Allah and Rasul and the A'immah of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wa salam. Salawat. Another companion of the Imam by the name of Abu Sa'id Aqisa, he came to the Imam. And look at the conversation, very interesting. Where he came with this complaint. He's saying, Imam, what have you done to us? And Imam says, Ya Aba Sa'id, Alastu hujjatullah ta'ala dhikruhu ala khalqihi wa imaman alayhim ba'da abi? Imam said, Oh Abu Sa'id, am I not the proof and the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the people and the Imam after my father? And he said, Bala, yes you are. Then Imam says, Alastu alladhi qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam li wa li akhi al-Hasan wal-Husayn imaman qama wa qa'ada? Is it not me about whom the Prophet had said about me and my brother that Hassan and Hussein are the Imams, whether they stand up and fight or they sit down and make peace with enemy? Abu Sa'id says yes. Then Imam says, فَأَنَا إِذًا إِمَامٌ لَوْ قُمْتُ وَأَنَا إِمَامٌ إِذْ قَعَدْتُ. And so I am your leader and Imam, whether I stand up to fight or sit down to sign peace treaty with the enemy. يا أبا سعيد علة مصالحتي لمعاوية علة مصالحة رسول الله لبني ضمرة ولأهل مكة حين انصرف من الحديبية. Imam says, uses the example, he says the reason why I made peace with Muawiyah is the same reason that Rasulullah made peace with the idol worshippers of Mecca in Hudaybiyah. And then he says the only difference here is أولئك كفار بالتنزيل ومعاوية وأصحابه كفار بالتعويل. The only difference is that Rasulullah made peace with those who were disbeliever in the revelation of the Quran, and I made peace with Muawiyah and his companions who are disbeliever in the interpretation of the Quran. They don't want to believe in the ta'wil of the Quran. They believe in the Quran, but not the tafsir of the Quran that comes from the Ahlul Bayt. And so there is no difference between that situation and this situation. Ya Aba Sayyid, إذا كنت إماما من قبل الله تعالى ذكره لم يجب أن يصفى رأيي فيما أتيته من محادنة أو محاربة. O Abu Sa'id, if I am the divinely appointed Imam, then nobody has a right to reject my opinion, whether I make peace or stand up for war. وَإِنْ كَانَ وَجْهُ الْحِكْمَةِ فِيمَا أَتَيْتُهُ مُلْتَبِسًا, even if the reasons and the wisdom of what I have done are not clear to you, you have no right to oppose my opinion. And then he uses an example. He says, look at the example of Khizr in Quran and Musa. He says the example there was Khizr. Musa is one of the Ulul Azm prophets. Goes there and spends some time with Khizr, and Khizr did 3 things that Musa couldn't understand. And so he objected there, until at the end Khizr, according to Surah Kahf, explains the reasons for doing the 3 things. It's a long story, I don't want to go into detail. And that's where he says, the example of with my people is the example of Khizr, and you are the Musa. You don't have the knowledge to understand what I have done. But this is where he says, فَلَوْلَا مَا أَتَيْتُ لَمَا تُرِكَ مِنْ شِيعَتِنَا عَلَى وَجْهِ الْأَرْضِ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا قُتِلَ. Imam says, if I had not made this peace treaty with Muawiyah, none of my Shias on the face of the earth would have been left, but that they would have been killed. And so Imam basically is explaining that, what I have done is for the betterment of the Ummah, for the betterment of the faith, and for the betterment of the Shia community. Salawat padhne ek baar. بات چونکہ یہاں تک آئی ہے، وہ جوان جو انگریزی نہیں سمجھتے ہیں اپنے بزرگوں سے بعد میں پوچھ لیں. ایک اور مثال دے دیں کہ کس طرح سے امام حسن علیہ السلام نے اپنی کمیونٹی کو یہ صلح کی حکمت کو پیش کیا ہے اور سمجھایا ہے. ایک مثال امام دیتے ہیں، اکثر جو ہے سورہ قدر پڑھتے تھے، لیلۃ القدر خیر من الف شہر، یعنی یہ ایک رات شب قدر کی اللہ کی نظر میں 1000 مہینے سے بہتر ہے. امام اکثر کہا کرتے تھے اپنے اصحاب سے جو آتے تھے کہ آپ نے کیوں یہ کیا؟ امام کہتے تھے ہم نے کوئی ولایت اور امامت تو نہیں دی ہے اسے، ہم نے جو اسے دی ہے وہ ہے الف شہر، جو ہمارے پاس باقی ہے ولایت اور امامت وہ ہے شب قدر. امامت کا مسئلہ، ولایت کا مسئلہ اس قابل بھی نہیں ہے کہ خود امام حسن اگر چاہیں کسی اور کو دے سکیں. یہ کسی رسول اور امام کے بس کی بات نہیں ہے. خدا جسے چاہتا ہے دیتا ہے، دینے والے کو بھی اختیار نہیں ہے کہ کسی اور کو دے دے. ابراہیم کی مثال ہے نا قرآن میں، امامت کا مرتبہ ملا لیکن دعا کی کہ خداوندہ میری ذریت میں بھی امامت کا سلسلہ جاری رکھ. ابراہیم جیسے اولوالعزم پیغمبر کو بھی اختیار نہیں تھا کہ امام ناس بننے کے بعد اپنی نسل میں اس مرتبے کو دے دے. یہ موروثی مرتبہ نہیں ہے کہ جو نیگوشیشنز کے ذریعے یا پیس ٹریٹی کے ذریعے جو ہے منتقل ہو سکے. اور امام یہی بتا رہے تھے کہ جہاں تک ولایت اور امامت کا معاملہ ہے یہ شب قدر کی طرح ہے، اور جہاں تک حکومت کی بات ہے یہ الف شہر ہے. یہ تو دوسری بات ہے کہ عرصہ گزر گیا، بنو امیہ پر زوال آیا، بنو عباس روئے کار آئے، غالباً 5ویں 6 امام کا زمانہ تھا. اصحاب نے اس گفتگو پر امام حسن کی غور کرنا شروع کیا. پھر انہوں نے کیلکولیٹ کرنا شروع کیا. ایگزیکٹلی بنو امیہ کی حکومت کا دور اگر 6 مہینہ نکال دیا جائے جو معاویہ بن یزید کا دور تھا، اس لیے کہ اس نے تو انکار کیا تھا خلافت سے، 6 مہینہ وہاں سے نکال دے، عمر ابن عبدالعزیز کے 2 سال کو نکال دیں، تو ٹوٹل نمبر مہینے کے جو ہوتے ہیں بنو امیہ کے حکومت کے ایگزیکٹلی 1000 سال ہے، 1000 مہینہ ہے. اور اس سے اندازہ ہوتا ہے کہ امام حسن نے نہ صرف یہ کہ امامت اور حکومت کے فرق کو بیان کیا ہے، بلکہ ایک پیشین گوئی بھی کی ہے کہ ہم نے جو حکومت دی ہے یہ 1000 مہینے سے زیادہ چلنے والی نہیں ہے. صلوات پڑھنا ہے پڑھنا. جہاں تک ڈاکٹر یاسر قاضی کی بات تھی کہ انہوں نے کہا کہ امام حسن علیہ السلام، امام حسین علیہ السلام was unhappy with حسن اور ان کے ڈیسیژن سے، تو اس کا جواب بھی آپ سن لیں. اولاً امام حسن علیہ السلام نے صلح نامے میں جہاں امت کی بات کی ہے، شیعان علی کی بات کی ہے، پھر اہل بیت کا ذکر کیا ہے، تو اپنے ساتھ ساتھ حسن کا بھی خاص نام اس میں لیا ہے، حسین کا بھی خاص نام لیا ہے کہ میرے جان کی حفاظت اور میرے بھائی حسین اور بقیہ اہل بیت کے افراد، یعنی وہاں کوئی بھی رنجش نہیں تھی. اسپیشلی ذکر کرتے ہیں امام حسین علیہ السلام کا. اور جہاں تک واقعات کی بات ہے، بہرحال ان کی یہاں کچھ روایات اس ٹائپ کی ملتی ہیں، لیکن بہترین دلیل کہ حسین ابن علی نے بھائی کا احترام کیا امام وقت کی حیثیت سے، اور ان کے اس فیصلے کا احترام اس طرح سے کیا ہے کہ آپ سوچ لیں. ہاں کوفہ میں کچھ لوگ تھے بڑے ریولوشنری ٹائپ کے، انقلابی ٹائپ کے، جوشیلے تھے. سن 50 ہجری میں جب امام حسن بن علی علیہ السلام کو زہر دیا گیا ہے، اور زہر معاویہ نے اسی لیے دیا تھا، اس لیے کہ صلح نامے میں بات یہ تھی کہ تمہارے بعد جو ہے خلافت جو ہے پلٹ کے آئے گی میرے پاس، تو لہٰذا معاویہ کے لیے ضروری تھا کہ امام حسن کو اپنے راستے سے ہٹا دے. سن 50 ہجری میں امام حسن علیہ السلام کی شہادت ہوتی ہے. معاویہ مرتا ہے سن 60 ہجری میں. امام حسن علیہ السلام کی شہادت کے بعد کوفے والوں نے خط لکھا ہے امام حسین کو سن 50 ہجری میں. خط لکھا ہے کہ اب آپ کے بھائی تو نہیں رہے جنہوں نے معاویہ سے صلح کی تھی، یہ موقع ہے کہ آپ آگے بڑھیں اور ہم آپ کا ساتھ دیں گے. حسین ابن علی نے جواب میں لکھا کہ جب تک معاویہ زندہ ہے خاموش بیٹھو، جب وہ مر جائے گا پھر دیکھا جائے گا. اور یہ عرصہ کتنا رہا؟ 10 سال کا عرصہ رہا. کیوں؟ حسین ابن علی کی نظر میں یہ صلح نامہ جو بھائی نے مرتب کیا تھا، جس پر دستخط تھی بھائی کی، اتنا قابل احترام تھا کہ ان شروط میں سے ایک شرط بھی اگر باقی رہی حسین اس کے خلاف نہیں جائیں گے. آخری شرط کیا تھی؟ کہ معاویہ مرنے کے بعد تجھے کوئی حق نہیں ہے کہ کسی اور کو اپنا جانشین مقرر کرو. جب تک وہ زندہ تھا تو وہ کچھ نہیں کر سکتا تھا. بیعت لی تھی اس نے جانشین کی حیثیت سے، لیکن امپلیمنٹ تو نہیں ہو سکتی تھی جب تک معاویہ خود نہ مرے. اب آپ دیکھ لیں 10 سال تک حسین نے بھائی کے صلح نامہ کا احترام کیا، خاموش بیٹھے رہے. معاویہ کے مرنے کے بعد جب یزید جانشین بنتا ہے تب تمام شروط پامال ہو گئیں. صلح حسن کے شرائط کے پامالی کے بعد حسین نے اپنا پہلا قدم اٹھایا ہے. یزید کی بیعت سے انکار کیا ہے. بلکہ آپ تاریخی اعتبار سے ہم یہ کہنا چاہیں گے کہ حسین کی تحریک کی بنیاد صلح حسن ہے۔ جب تک صلح حسن کے شرائط میں سے ایک شرط بھی ظاہری طور پہ باقی رہی، حسین نے ایک قدم بھی نہیں اٹھایا، چاہے 10 سال گزر گئے۔ جب آخری شرط بھی پامال ہو جاتی ہے پھر حسین اٹھتے ہیں۔ تو لہٰذا ان دونوں بھائیوں میں اختلاف نہیں ہے، بلکہ تحریک حسین کی بنیاد در حقیقت صلح حسن کی بنیاد پر ہے۔ صلوات پڑھنے کے بعد بس ایک اور پوائنٹ آپ کے سامنے ہم پیش کرنا چاہیں گے، شاید سنیں یا نہ سنیں کسی اور سے یا پڑھیں، لیکن ایک خیال ہے، چونکہ اس تاریخ کے اس حصے پر ہم نے کافی غور و فکر کیا ہے عرصے دراز سے۔ اگر امام حسن علیہ السلام صلح نہ کرتے تو کیا ہوتا؟ اس کا بھی ایک تعلق ہے کربلا سے۔ اگر امام حسن صلح نہ کرتے، جنگ کرتے، تو 2 ہی پاسبلٹیز تھی، یا تو وہ شہید ہو جاتے، اور آپ کہتے اس میں کیا مضائقہ کیا ہے؟ شہید تو ہو جاتے، لیکن تاریخ ہمیشہ معاویہ کو نہ صرف فاتح مانے گی، بلکہ تاریخ ہمیشہ یہ کہے گی کہ معاویہ صلح کے لیے تیار تھا، حسن بن علی تیار نہیں تھے۔ شہادت ہوتی لیکن اس کو نیگیٹو پرسپیکٹو میں پیش کیا جاتا۔ تو ایک پاسبلٹی یہ تھی۔ دوسری پاسبلٹی یہ تھی کہ مان لیجئے قتل نہ کرتا، جنگ ہوتی، شامی لشکر جو ہے فاتح ہو جاتا، اور امام حسن اور امام حسین اور بنو ہاشم کو قید کر دیتا، اسیر بنانے کے بعد پھر چھوڑ دیتا اپنے رحم و کرم کی بنیاد پہ۔ اس کے اثرات بہت دور جاتے ہیں۔ فتح مکہ میں رسول اسلام نے بنو امیہ کو اپنا غلام بنا سکتے تھے لیکن آزاد کر دیا تھا۔ ابو سفیان اور آل ابو سفیان کو یہی کہا تھا کہ تم جو ہے ہمارے غلام بن سکتے ہو، لیکن جاؤ ہم تمہیں آزاد کرتے ہیں۔ وہ جو بنو ہاشم کی جو برتری تھی، ہمیشہ جو برتری تھی تاریخ میں بنو ہاشم کی، کہ ہم تمہیں اپنا غلام بنا سکتے تھے لیکن رحمت للعالمین کی حیثیت سے تمہیں چھوڑ دیا، ہم نے آزاد کر دیا، وہ برتری ختم ہو جاتی، وہ برابری ہو جاتی۔ اور اگر برابری ہوتی اور واقعات کربلا ہوتا، اہل حرم کو اسیر کیا جاتا، زینب یزید کے دربار میں اسے یہ نہیں کہہ سکتی تھی یبن الطلقاء، اے آزاد کردہ غلام کی اولاد، اس لیے کہ وہ پلٹ کے کہتا کہ ہم نے بھی تو آپ لوگوں کو آزاد کیا ہے۔ تو جنگ کی گنجائش نہیں تھی، اس کے اثرات جو ہیں بہت دور تک جاتے تھے۔ امام حسن علیہ السلام گہرے طور پہ وابستہ ہیں کربلا کی تحریک سے، اور امام حسین علیہ السلام پورے طور پہ سہیم اور شریک ہیں حسن بن علی کے ساتھ ان کے صلح۔ دونوں بھائیوں کا آپ الگ نہیں کر سکتے، اور یہی بات ہے کہ آپ دیکھیں کہ کربلا کی تحریک میں بھی اہل حرم کا بھی بہت اہم کردار رہا ہے۔ قافلہ جو مدینہ سے مکہ چلا ہے، صلح و امن کی جگہ تھی، لیکن وہاں بھی یزید نے جو ہے ایسیسنز بھیجے کہ اگر حسین طواف کرتے ہوئے بھی نظر آئیں کعبے کے گرد، انہیں قتل کر دیا جائے۔ حسین 8 ذی الحجہ کو وہاں سے عزم سفر کرتے ہیں، حج کو بدلتے ہیں عمرہ میں، عمرہ مفردہ میں، اور وہاں جب عبداللہ ابن عباس اور محمد حنفیہ کو جب خبر ملی ہے، وہ آتے ہیں دونوں، اپنے انداز سے واقعات کو دیکھ رہے تھے اور آنکھیں امام حسین سے ہی کہتے ہیں کہ آپ کو اگر جانا ہی ہے تو کوفہ مت جائیے. کوفہ والوں نے جو سلوک بابا کے ساتھ کیا ہے، بھائی کے ساتھ کیا ہے، جانا ہے تو یمن جائیے. اس وقت امام حسین علیہ السلام نے ایک جملہ کہا، اس لیے کہ حسین واقعات کو ایک اور لیول سے دیکھ رہے تھے اور وہ تفصیلاً بیٹھ کے انہیں سمجھا نہیں سکتے تھے. صرف ایک جملہ کہا اسپیشلی محمد حنفیہ سے کہ بھائی نانا خواب میں آئے تھے اور نانا نے ہم سے کہا ہے یا حسین اخرج، حسین چلو، حسین جاؤ، اس لیے کہ خداوند عالم نے ایک مرتبہ تیرے لیے محفوظ کیا ہوا ہے آخرت میں جو صرف شہادت کے ذریعے حاصل ہو سکتا ہے. اس خواب کے ذکر کے بعد محمد حنفیہ کے پاس کوئی الفاظ نہیں تھے، لیکن خیم قافلے کی طرف نظر دوڑاتے ہیں، دیکھتے ہیں کہ محملیں بھی ہیں، خواتین اور بچے بھی ساتھ ساتھ جا رہے ہیں. ایک جملہ کہا ہے محمد حنفیہ نے کہ حسین اگر آپ مرنے کے ارادے سے جا رہے ہیں آپ جائیے، ہم آپ روکیں گے نہیں آپ کو، لیکن ان بیوی بچوں کو ہمارے حوالے کر دیں، ہم مدینہ واپس لے کے جائیں گے. حسین کس طرح سے سمجھاتے کہ بھائی تم وہ نظر نہیں رکھتے ہو جو ہمارے پاس، کہ اگر ہم کربلا میں تنہا گئے اور قتل کر دیے گئے تو میرا پیغام اور مقصد بھی میرے ساتھ دفن ہو جائے گا. یہی خواتین اور بچے ہیں جو میرے پیغام کو کوفہ اور کوفہ سے شام اور اس کے دربار تک لے کے جائیں گے. حسین کو ضرورت تھی اہل حرم کی، اور اس لیے جملہ کہتے ہیں بھائی نانا نے یہ بھی کہا تھا کہ خدا تیرے گھر والوں کو اسیر اور قیدی اسلام کے خاطر دیکھنا چاہتا. اسی طرح سے یہ قافلہ روانہ ہوتا ہے. 2 محرم کی تاریخ تھی جب کربلا پہنچا ہے. امام کا گھوڑا آگے نہیں بڑھ رہا تھا، کئی گھوڑے بدلے ہیں. آخر میں جب جگہ کا نام پوچھا ہے تو معلوم ہوا کہ یہی وہ جگہ ہے جس کا ذکر بابا نے کیا تھا، جس کا ذکر نانا نے کیا تھا. عزاداران حسین وہاں بھی آپ دیکھیں وہاں قیام ہوتا ہے، لیکن حسین کی غیرت کو دیکھیں. حسین یہ نہیں پسند کر رہے تھے کہ ان کا لاشا اسی زمین میں دفن کیا جائے جو کسی اور کی زمین ہو. بنو اسد کے قبیلے والے جو وہ مالک تھے اس علاقے کے، ان کو بلاتے ہیں. آنے کے بعد ان کے ساتھ ایک بیع نامہ کرتے ہیں اور بیع نامے میں یہ لکھتے ہیں کہ دیکھو اس زمین کو ہم نے خریدا ضرور ہے لیکن ہم وقف کر دیتے ہیں، تم اس کے متولی بننا. دیکھو حسین نے مجھے اور آپ کو یاد کیا ہے. اس میں بنو اسد سے کہا ہے کہ دیکھو میرا مزار بنے گا، میرے زائرین آئیں گے دنیا سے، تم 3 دن تک اپنا مہمان بنانا. حسین ہمارے میزبان ہے زیارت کے لیے. عزاداران حسین کچھ بزرگ علماء یہاں بیان کرتے ہیں کہ آخر میں حسین نے بنو اسد کے مردوں کو عورتوں سے جدا کیا اور بچوں کو عورتوں سے الگ کیا. پھر مردوں سے کہتے ہیں کہ یہاں ایک لشکر آئے گا یزید کا جو ہمیں قتل تو کر دے گے لیکن قتل کرنے کے بعد دفن نہیں کریں گے. تمہیں اگر ہمت ہو تو آ کے ہمیں دفن کر دینا. آخر میں نواسے رسول خواتین کی طرح ہاتھ جوڑتا ہے کہ اگر تمہارے مردوں میں ہمت نہ ہو تو اپنی چادر لیے ہوئے آنا اور ہمیں دفن کر دینا. آخر میں مظلومیت کا وہ عالم ہے کہ حسین بچوں سے مخاطب ہوتے ہیں کہ اگر ماں باپ میں ہمت نہ ہوئی تو کھیلتے ہوئے مقتل کی طرف آ جانا اور اپنے ننھے ہاتھ سے خاک میرے جسد پر ڈال دینا. الا لعنۃ اللہ علی القوم الظالمین سیعلم الذین ظلموا ای منقلب ینقلبون. خداوند اس خلیل بعد قبول فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہمارے توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما۔ خداوند شیعان علی جہاں جہاں ہیں ان کو اپنے حفظ امان میں رکھ، امام کے ظہور میں تاجل فرما۔ ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم۔ ماتم حسین۔